Did I just read the best historical fantasy ever? Hey Book Dragons, I am so glad that you're here with me today. We're going to be talking about A Song for Arbonne by Guy Gavriel Kay. I'm going to try and keep this mostly spoiler-free, but if you don't want any details about the book, you should probably step away and read the book and then come back and find out more from me if you're interested. If you don't mind a few details about the book, stick around. I'd love to have you join me. And if you have snacks or drinks that you want to consume, go ahead and get those now. Pause the video, and I'll be right here when you get back. And if you're here, let's go ahead and get right to it. So, A Song for Arbonne is a book that I have been hearing so many good things about. So many people say that it is their favorite Guy Gavriel Kay book. Many people say it's their favorite book of all time. And I read Tigana about a year ago now, and I enjoyed Tigana. And I was determined that I was at least going to read The Lions of Al-Rassan and A Song for Arbonne at some point in 2026. And so I decided to do that. I did this as a buddy read with Jessica over at Jessica's Library Card. If you have not checked her out, you really should. She's amazing. And we had a really good time discussing the book as we went along. And so now that I've finished it, it's time to tell you my thoughts on it. So stick around here and let's go. I'm going to give you the basics first, and there will be some timestamps as well so that you can skip to parts of the video you're more interested in if you like. All right, so here are the basics. A Song for Arbonne is set in a fantasy world, but it is akin to places in our real world. And it's set in a world with two moons, so that's really the only giveaway that it's actually on an alien planet, or at least alien to us. But it is loosely based on medieval Provence, which eventually became part of France in the 15th century. And it is set around the culture of the troubadours. So you got music and art, and everything creative is celebrated in Arbonne. The book contrasts two major kingdoms, the kingdom of Arbonne and the kingdom of Gorho. And we'll talk a little bit about Arbonne first, and then we'll move on to the other one. So Arbonne is a matriarchal kingdom that values love and the arts, and religion is centered around a goddess called Rian. And then the kingdom of Gorho is centered on male dominance, and they worship the god Kuranos, who they see as a god of war, although there are hints at points in the story that that's not necessarily the case, but this is the version of Kuranos that is preached to them. And they are very, very different cultures. That's why I say that it's a contrast, because they are wildly different. Gorho especially is very heavily dominated by the men in its culture. The women are treated like trash, and they are basically there to make babies for the men and to serve the needs of men, very often the sexual needs of men. And so it is a very uncomfortable culture to read about because of the way they treat women. And so then you look at a culture like Arbonne, and they are very celebratory of women, and women are at the forefront of their cultures, and equality is a big part of their culture. And as I was reading the book, I just kept thinking to myself how I would love to live in Arbonne, because it's a very progressive, very forward-thinking country, and looking at the other country, the country of Gorho, is just night and day. It is night and day. And so the central focus of this book is on the differences between the two cultures and the eventual physical clash of their cultures that the book culminates in. The book is broken into 4 sections, which is really nice, actually. There are only 19 chapters in the book, but they are long chapters, okay? So if you are a person who likes short chapters, like 5 pages at most, which I tend to prefer, you may want to prepare yourself for this book because the chapters are long. I read it on my Kobo, and each chapter was pretty much at least 50 minutes to read according to the timer, and sometimes over an hour and a half to read a particular chapter. So just keep that in mind. But the way I read it, and the way that I would recommend most people read it, is by section. So it's broken down into different seasons: spring, midsummer, autumn, and winter. And so that's a great way to experience this book. Read spring, take a little breather, then read midsummer, take a little breather again, and so forth. That's a really great way to read it. And I think my favorite of the seasons was midsummer because it's centered around the court of love, and which is a court that celebrates the goddess, and it celebrates femininity, and it celebrates passion. And you've got a carnival that's taking place around this time as well, and it celebrates free love and freedom of expression. And I just loved everything about that particular season in this book. Even though the other seasons have elements of that as well, that's just kind of what the culture of Arbonne is all about. But it was specifically celebrated during the Midsummer Festival, and I just loved that aspect of it. So I think if you like that sort of thing, you'll really enjoy this. The prose in this book was just absolutely brilliant and flowing. It really does feel like a troubadour is telling you this tale of Arbonne in the form of song. And I have no doubt that's why the book is titled that, and I just found it fascinating. So let's talk a little bit about the magic. There isn't much, but there is a specific order of priestesses that are dedicated to the goddess Rion, and that's where really the magic takes place, if there is any. Specifically, the high priestess is the most powerful because she has willingly had her sight taken so that she can fully embrace the mysteries of Rion. And so because she cannot see, she is given an owl who can see for her. And it's just, I love owls. And, there are healings that take place and things like that. But it's very much a low magic system. So if you're looking for magic, and you really like a lot of flash bang in your face magic, you're not going to find that here. But I loved it. I thought it was just enough to keep me mystified and intrigued, right? So I thought that was amazing. And that's kind of the way all of Kay's books are. He doesn't deal a whole lot in heavy magic. It's more about the history with elements of supernatural things happening. You may even call it magical realism, although I wouldn't necessarily call it that myself. You might call it that. So let's talk about some of the characters. And this is a small cast of characters. There are a lot of people in the countries of Arbonne and Gorho, of course, and neighboring countries like Valence and such. But it is mostly centered on a small cast. And I really liked that. I got a deep dive into these characters. One of those is the current queen of Arbonne, or the countess, I should say. The count has recently died, and the countess is now ruling Arbonne. And of course, the kingdom of Gorho does not like that at all, because they despise the fact that a woman would actually be holding power. But that being said, and her name is Signa de Barbantan, or Barbantane. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce that, but these are a lot of times traditional French pronunciations because of the history it is mimicking. And so I had to have some help with some of the pronunciations. Jessica was kind enough to help me out with that as we were buddy reading it together. So thank you, Jessica. Yeah, so Signa de Barbantan is the reigning queen. She's older at this point, and there was not really an heir apparent as of yet. And so she's trying to keep the country together after her husband's demise. We also have Blaise de Garçonc, and he is the son of Galbert de Garçonc of Gorho. So he is from the kingdom of Gorho, but he has become a mercenary for hire because of some recent history in Gorho that he does not approve of. And so he has gone on his way to be hired as a mercenary to whoever will pay his price. And so he is one of the biggest central characters in the story. We spend a lot of time with Blaise, and I absolutely love his character. The character journey that he goes through is just beautiful to watch. So there's Blaise, there's Bertrand de Talar, and he is one of the dukes of Arbonne, and he is also a troubadour. We have Ariane de Carenzu, and she is a cousin to the Barbantan family, and she is married to the Duke of Carenzu, and she is the queen of the court of love. So the goddess religion that everybody is a part of, and the court of love that goes with it, that celebrates passion and free love and everything like that I mentioned before. She is sort of the monarch of that court. And so she's really cool. I really love Ariane. And then we have Elise de Miraval, and she is the daughter of the Countess. And we see her very briefly in the story, but early on she makes choices that will affect everyone in the realm as the story goes along. And her story is central to the end of the story as well. So Elise is a very big player in this game, as well as her husband, the Duke of Miraval, Urte de Miraval, I believe is how you pronounce it, Urte. And then we have Lisette, who is a troubadour. She's a budding troubadour, and she's kind of on the sidelines in a sense, seeing what all is going on and becoming familiar with different players in the game. But she will come to play a fairly significant role. And then we have King Adhemar of Gorho. And King Adhemar is an ass. That's the only way I know to put it. People have compared him to Joffrey in A Game of Thrones, and I would not go that far. I honestly don't think he's as bad as Joffrey, but he's bad. Make no mistake about it. This guy is evil. And the story lets you know that in various ways, especially a very brutal scene in the book that took both myself and Jessica back quite a bit. Very brutal. Adamar is just evil. Through various circumstances, he came to be the king, and that remains to be seen if he stays king, right? So those are the major players in the book. I won't go into detail about a whole lot of other characters, but there are a few that I didn't mention that have significant parts to play in the story. And then, of course, we have the writing, and I mentioned earlier that it is very lyrical, very sing-songy in so many different aspects, and you feel like you're just on this journey with the characters, and as if music was playing in the background as you're seeing the events of this story unfold. It is extremely poetic, extremely rich in detail, but I didn't feel like it was pointless detail. I felt like the detail was very necessary to the story, and it kept me fully engaged the entire time. I just ate it up. I loved every minute of that. So the writing was beautiful. And having read Tigana, I was not surprised by that because Guy Gavriel Kay is known for his prose, and it's just really beautiful writing. And so now let's talk about a few themes that the book explores. The biggest one of those, of course, is love in all its aspects and forms, and that would be courtly love, forbidden love, familial and friendly love. All different aspects of love are seen in this story in deep and profound ways, and I just really enjoyed that about the story. It, of course, celebrates art and music and themes centered around creativity in general. There's a lot of poetry here. Cultural identity is explored very heavily, and I think it's very well done, and it's very deep and profound in that respect as well. And of course, there are themes of war. It really explores the conflict between idealism and brutal reality. And all of that wrapped together makes for a very interesting book. So now you may be wondering what the answer to the question at the beginning of this video is. I asked at the beginning, is this the best historical fantasy I have read? And I would say no. It is one of the best, but I still love the world of Westeros in A Song of Ice and Fire. That is still my favorite historical fantasy, but Guy Gavriel Kay is going to easily come in a close second, just because of the depth of his prose and the depth of emotion that he writes with and feeds into the reader as well. I mean, there were so many times where I was just brought to tears by the way something was expressed or the events that were happening in the characters' lives and the emotions they were experiencing, because so much of the book you do really get their perspectives and how they are feeling as a result of the things that are happening in this world, especially in Arbonne, because people are seeking to tear their kingdom apart and tear down the freedoms that they so richly enjoy. And so it's a very emotionally gripping book, and the character development is just on par with some of the best I have ever read. It was so fitting to call it a song, because that is the way it is written. So yes, A Song for Arbonne is probably my second favorite historical fantasy that I have read. And I can't wait to read more Guy Gavriel Kay. I highly recommend A Song for Arbonne to anyone who enjoys some of the things that I have mentioned here. There were a few things at the end that I wish had been tied up differently, or things that I wish had been explored a little more, but Those things were very, very minor. Very, very minor. Overall, I just absolutely loved this book. If you follow me on Goodreads, you'll see that I gave it a 5-star rating. It was that good for me. And yes, I wholeheartedly recommend this to anyone. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you have read this book, please dialogue with me in the comments. I will do my very best to leave a spoiler section in the comments below so that you can talk spoilers. But if you are posting a comment separate from that, please keep it spoiler free. If you have never read this book before, maybe you've been on the fence, maybe you've never heard of it, I would be shocked if you hadn't heard of Guy Gavriel Kay, but maybe you haven't heard of him either and you'd like to explore his works. Let me know in the comments below what you think of my review of this amazing book. So that's all I've got to say today. If you want to watch more of my content, there's some ideas on the end screen here. And until next time, make sure you read more books. Take care.